Welcome to Science Aura. I am Dr. Sachi Vale. Imagine a machine worth billions of dollars, a floating fortress of steel and advanced technology capable of projecting power across the globe. Now, imagine this titan of the seas being effectively neutralized by a tiny, inexpensive vessel navigating the shallow depths. This is not a hypothetical scenario from a science fiction novel. It is the very real, very present reality of modern asymmetric warfare, where the laws of physics rewrite the rules. For decades, global military dominance has been measured by the size and technological sophistication of a nation naval fleet. Supercarriers, stretching over 300 meters long and carrying dozens of advanced strike aircraft, are the ultimate symbols of this power. They are designed to operate in the deep, open oceans, where their massive arrays of sensors and defensive systems can detect and destroy threats from hundreds of kilometers away. But the ocean is not a uniform environment. When these massive armadas transition from the deep blue waters into the shallow coastal regions known as littoral zones, the strategic calculus shifts dramatically. In these confined spaces, the colossal advantages of a supercarrier begin to erode. The sheer size of the vessel, once a testament to its invulnerability, becomes a significant liability. It is here, in the murky, complex waters near the shore, that the David and Goliath dynamic of naval warfare truly comes into sharp focus. Asymmetric warfare is defined by a conflict where the opposing forces possess vastly different military capabilities, and the weaker side uses unconventional tactics to exploit the vulnerabilities of the stronger side. In the maritime domain, this translates to utilizing small, stealthy, and highly maneuverable assets to counter massive capital ships. The goal is not to match the enemy ship for ship, but to create an environment where the enemy technological superiority is rendered useless. The financial disparity in these conflicts is staggering. A modern nuclear-powered supercarrier can cost upwards of $13 billion to construct, not including the cost of the aircraft it carries or the escort ships required to protect it. In stark contrast, a diesel-electric mini-submarine can be built for a mere fraction of that cost, often less than $200 million. This economic asymmetry means that a smaller nation can deploy multiple threats for the price of one. However, the true advantage of these smaller vessels does not lie solely in their price tag. Their primary weapon is the environment itself. The shallow waters of the littoral zone are arguably the most complex and challenging acoustic environments on the planet. To understand why $1 billion warship can be blinded in these waters, we must first dive into the fundamental physics of how navies see underwater. And that brings us to the fascinating science of sonar technology and sound. Sound travels through water much faster and further than light does, making it the primary method for underwater detection. Active sonar works by emitting a pulse of sound and listening for the echo that bounces back from an object. Passive sonar, on the other hand, simply listens for the sounds generated by other vessels, such as the hum of an engine or the cavitation of a propeller. In the deep ocean, these acoustic waves can travel uninterrupted for thousands of kilometers with clarity. In the vast, deep ocean, the water column is relatively stable and predictable. Sound waves propagate in a predictable manner, allowing advanced sonar computers to accurately calculate the distance, speed, and trajectory of a target. Supercarriers and their escort destroyers are equipped with incredibly powerful sonar arrays capable of processing massive amounts of acoustic data to create a detailed three-dimensional map of the underwater battle space. But shallow water changes everything. The littoral zone is a chaotic symphony of noise and acoustic distortion. Unlike the deep ocean, shallow waters are heavily influenced by the proximity of the seabed and the surface, as well as a multitude of environmental factors. The ocean is not a homogeneous body of water. It is a complex, layered medium with varying physical properties. These properties act as acoustic lenses, bending, scattering, and absorbing sound waves in ways that confound even the most advanced sonar algorithms. To truly appreciate the complexity of this underwater environment, we must look at the science of oceanography. Specifically, we need to examine how three key variables, like temperature, salinity, and pressure, interact to determine the speed of sound in water. Even minute changes in these variables can have a profound impact on acoustic propagation. In shallow coastal waters, these variables fluctuate wildly, creating an impenetrable acoustic fog that shields small submarines from detection. Let us begin with temperature. The sun heats the surface of the ocean, creating a warm upper layer. As you descend, the temperature drops. However, this decrease is rarely gradual or uniform. Instead, the ocean is often divided into distinct thermal layers, separated by sharp boundaries known as thermoclines. A thermocline is a region where the water temperature changes rapidly with depth. These thermal boundaries act as invisible acoustic mirrors, reflecting sound waves back to the surface. When a supercarrier sonar emits a pulse, the sound wave travels through the water until it hits a thermocline. Because the speed of sound changes abruptly at this boundary, the acoustic energy is refracted or bent. If the angle of incidence is shallow enough, the sound wave can bounce off the thermocline entirely, never penetrating the cooler water below. This creates what acousticians call a shadow zone, a vast underwater region where a submarine can hide completely undetected by sonar. In coastal regions, thermoclines are particularly erratic. Tides, currents, and freshwater runoff from rivers constantly mix the water column, creating highly unpredictable thermal profiles. A shadow zone might exist in one location for a few hours, only to disappear and reform elsewhere as the tide changes. A skilled submarine commander, intimately familiar with the local oceanography, can navigate these shifting acoustic shadows, effectively remaining invisible to surface warships above. Salinity, or the saltiness of the water, also plays a crucial role in acoustic propagation. The speed of sound increases as water becomes saltier. In littoral zones, the salinity is rarely constant. Fresh water from rivers and heavy rainfall mixes with the salty ocean water, creating complex salinity gradients. These gradients further complicate the acoustic environment, causing sound waves to bend and scatter in unpredictable directions, confusing sonar operators and their advanced systems. Imagine looking through a glass of water with varying concentrations of sugar. The light bends and distorts the image behind it. The same principle applies to sound in water with varying salinity. This phenomenon, known as acoustic refraction, can cause a sonar system to calculate an incorrect position for a target, or miss it entirely. The sonar might indicate that a submarine is 3 kilometers away and 50 meters deep, when in reality, it is much closer and preparing to launch an attack. The combination of unpredictable thermoclines and complex salinity gradients creates a phenomenon known as acoustic channeling. Under certain conditions, sound waves can become trapped between 2 layers of water, traveling vast distances within this channel, but remaining undetectable to sensors located outside of it. A small submarine operating within an acoustic channel can monitor the movements of surface ships without ever revealing its own position, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The physics of sound in shallow water heavily favors the defender. A defending navy can deploy an array of stationary sensors on the seabed, mapping the local thermal and salinity profiles in real time. This intimate knowledge of the acoustic environment allows them to predict exactly where shadow zones will form and where acoustic channeling will occur. They can essentially map the blind spots of an approaching enemy fleet and position their mini-submarines accordingly for maximum effect. This is the essence of asymmetric warfare, turning the enemy's strength into a weakness. The supercarrier massive sonar arrays, designed to scan vast volumes of the deep ocean, are overwhelmed by the chaotic acoustic environment of the littoral zone. The very technology that makes the carrier invincible in the open sea renders it vulnerable near the shore. The sophisticated algorithms struggle to separate the signal of a tiny submarine from the overwhelming background noise of the shallow water. Furthermore, the sheer size of a supercarrier makes it an incredibly noisy platform. The massive propellers, the hum of the nuclear reactors, and the mechanical vibrations of the ship itself generate a tremendous amount of acoustic energy. This noise travels for kilometers, announcing the carrier presence to any listening submarine long before the carrier active sonar can detect a threat. The mini-submarine, operating in absolute silence, simply waits in the acoustic shadows for its prey. We have explored how temperature and salinity create an acoustic fog in the water column. But the challenges of shallow water warfare do not end there. The physical boundaries of the littoral zone, meaning the surface and the seabed, introduce entirely new layers of complexity to the acoustic environment. To understand how many submarines execute their deadly ambushes, we must look down to the ocean floor, where complex topography and acoustic reverberation provide the ultimate hiding place. In the deep ocean, the seabed is thousands of meters below the surface, playing little to no role in sonar detection. However, in littoral zones, the ocean floor is dangerously close. This proximity dramatically alters the acoustic landscape. When a sonar pulse strikes the shallow seabed, it does not simply disappear. Instead, the acoustic energy scatters and bounces back towards the surface, creating a phenomenon known as bottom reverberation. This is an absolute nightmare for sonar operator. Bottom reverberation acts like acoustic clutter, filling the sonar screen with false echoes and background noise. Imagine trying to find a single specific voice in a crowded, echoing gymnasium. The sheer volume of reflected sound masks the faint echo of a small submarine. The more powerful the active sonar pulse emitted by the warship, the louder the resulting reverberation, effectively blinding the ship's sensors with their own acoustic energy. It is a completely self-defeating cycle of noise. The composition of the seabed further complicates matters. A soft, muddy bottom absorbs a significant amount of sound energy, reducing the range of active sonar. Conversely, a hard, rocky bottom reflects sound highly efficiently, increasing reverberation and creating a chaotic web of bouncing acoustic waves. A skilled submarine commander will actively seek out rocky, uneven terrain to hide within the intense acoustic clutter, knowing that surface sonars will struggle to pinpoint their location. The physical topography of the shallow seabed is rarely flat. It is a rugged landscape of underwater canyons, ridges, seamounts, and trenches. These geological features provide physical cover for small submarine. A mini submarine can navigate into a narrow underwater trench or tuck itself behind a rocky outcropping, physically shielding itself from the probing sonar waves of surface ships. In this environment, intimate knowledge of the local underwater geography is a supreme tactical advantage. Coastal nations invest heavily in mapping their littoral zones, creating highly detailed, high-resolution bathymetric charts. This data is fiercely guarded, as it is the key to executing successful asymmetric naval strategies. By knowing the precise location of every underwater ridge and trench, a defending navy can pre-position its mini-submarines in optimal ambush locations. The attacking fleet, lacking this detailed local knowledge, is forced to navigate blindly through a minefield of threats. Furthermore, the shallow seabed is often littered with natural and man-made debris, like sunken ships, discarded cargo, and natural rock formation. To a sonar system, these objects can appear identical to a small submarine. This creates a high rate of false positives, forcing the attacking fleet to waste time and resources investigating every acoustic anomaly. The defending mini-submarines can use this confusion to their advantage, slipping away or maneuvering into an attack position undetected. The acoustic environment of the littoral zone is also heavily influenced by biological noise. Shallow coastal waters are teeming with marine life, much of which produces sound. Snapping shrimp, vocalizing whales, and massive schools of fish create a constant background din that further degrades sonar performance. This biological cacophony provides a natural acoustic camouflage for silent mini-submarines, allowing them to blend seamlessly into the ambient noise of the complex ocean environment. In this chaotic acoustic environment, passive sonar, which means simply listening for the enemy, becomes the most effective detection method. However, this requires the listening vessel to be exceptionally quiet. This is where the technological asymmetry truly shines. A nuclear-powered supercarrier, despite its advanced technology, cannot turn off its cooling pumps or silence its massive reduction gears. It is inherently noisy. A diesel-electric mini-submarine possesses a unique operational mode. When operating on battery power, a modern mini-submarine is virtually silent. There are no noisy pumps, no vibrating gears, and no mechanical humming. The only sound it produces is the gentle swoosh of water over its hull, which is easily masked by the ambient noise of the ocean. This absolute silence allows the mini-submarine to utilize its passive sonar to track the deafeningly loud supercarrier from afar, while remaining completely invisible to the carrier-owned listening devices and sensors. The combination of acoustic channeling, bottom reverberation, complex topography, and biological noise transforms the littoral zone into a fortress for the defender. The supercarrier, designed to project power across the globe, finds its technological advantages nullified by the sheer complexity of the natural environment. To exploit this environment, defending nations have developed a specific breed of naval vessel, the incredibly stealthy, highly lethal diesel-electric mini-submarine. The mini-submarine is the ultimate weapon of asymmetric naval warfare. Typically displacing less than 1,000 tons, these vessels are a fraction of the size of a standard attack submarine. Their small size makes them incredibly maneuverable in shallow, confined waters, allowing them to navigate complex underwater terrain that would be impassable for larger ships. But their most critical feature is their propulsion system, which grants them an unparalleled level of absolute acoustic stealth. Unlike their nuclear-powered counterparts, which must constantly run noisy coolant pumps to prevent their reactors from melting down, and mini-submarines rely on a combination of diesel engines and massive battery banks. While on the surface or at periscope depth, they use their diesel engines to charge the batteries. But when they submerge to conduct an ambush, they switch entirely to battery power. In this mode, the submarine becomes an acoustic black hole, emitting virtually zero measurable noise. Advancements in battery technology have dramatically increased the lethality of these vessels. Traditional lead-acid batteries have been largely replaced by advanced lithium-ion arrays, similar to those found in electric cars, but on a massive scale. These new batteries offer significantly higher energy density, allowing the mini-submarine to remain submerged and operating silently on battery power for days or even weeks at a time. This extended endurance is crucial for deep ambush tactics. Furthermore, many modern mini-submarines are equipped with air-independent propulsion, or AIP systems. These systems, which often utilize fuel cells or closed-cycle steam turbines, allow the submarine to generate electricity without needing to surface for atmospheric oxygen. AIP technology bridges the gap between traditional diesel-electric boats and nuclear submarines, offering extended submerged endurance while maintaining the absolute acoustic silence that makes them so incredibly deadly today. The hull design of a mini-submarine is also optimized for stealth in shallow waters. They are often coated in anechoic tiles, which are thick layers of synthetic rubber designed to absorb active sonar pulses rather than reflecting them. These tiles act like a stealth coating, significantly reducing the submarine acoustic signature and making it even harder to detect amidst the bottom reverberation of the littoral zone. Every aspect of the vessel is engineered to minimize its physical presence. Because they are relatively inexpensive to produce, a defending nation can deploy dozens of mini-submarines to protect its coastline. This creates a swarm effect, forcing the attacking fleet to divide its attention and resources across multiple potential threats. Even if the attacking fleet manages to detect and destroy one mini-submarine, several more may be lurking nearby, ready to launch their torpedoes. It is a numbers game that heavily favors the defender operating in their home waters. The weaponry carried by these small vessels is disproportionately powerful. A single modern heavyweight torpedo, guided by advanced fiber optic cables and acoustic sensors, is capable of breaking the keel of a massive warship. A mini-submarine needs only to land one successful strike to cripple a multi-billion-dollar supercarrier. This extreme concentration of offensive power in a small, stealthy platform is the defining characteristic of the David and Goliath dynamic in naval warfare today. The tactics employed by mini-submarine commanders are specifically designed to exploit the physical properties of the shallow water environment. They do not engage in high-speed underwater dogfights. Instead, they rely on patience, stealth, and intimate knowledge of the local oceanography. They navigate through acoustic shadow zones, using the complex thermal layers to shield their movements from surface sonars. Slowly creeping into an optimal firing position completely undetected by the enemy, one of the most effective and chilling tactics used by these vessels is known as bottoming. Because of their small size and rugged construction, many submarines can physically rest on the ocean floor. By settling into a shallow By settling into a shallow trench or resting against a rocky, its acoustic signature merges with the bottom reverberation, rendering it entirely invisible to even the most advanced active sonar systems available. While resting on the seabed, the mini-submarine shuts down all non-essential systems, conserving battery power and maintaining absolute acoustic silence. The crew waits in the dark, monitoring their passive sonar arrays, listening to the ocean above. They can remain in this state of suspended animation for days, acting as a hidden, lethal minefield. When the deafening acoustic signature of a supercarrier passes overhead, the mini submarine awakens from its slumber to launch its deadly ambush. The moment of the strike is precise and devastating. Using targeting data passively gathered from the noisy surface fleet, the mini submarine calculates a firing solution. Modern torpedoes do not simply travel in a straight line. They are sophisticated underwater drones. Guided by a thin fiber optic wire spooled out from the submarine, the torpedo can be steered around obstacles and acoustic anomalies, ensuring it finds its target even in the chaotic, reverberating environment of shallow waters. These torpedoes are designed to detonate directly beneath the hull of a large warship. The explosion creates a massive gas bubble that expands and collapses with incredible force. This phenomenon, known as the bubble pulse, lifts the massive ship out of the water and then drops it into the void created by the collapsing bubble. The immense structural stress literally breaks the ship back, snapping the keel and sinking a billion-dollar vessel with a single, perfectly placed underwater strike. After launching its payload, the mini-submarine uses the ensuing chaos to escape. The massive acoustic detonation of the torpedo creates an underwater shockwave that temporarily blinds the sonar systems of the surviving escort ships. The mini-submarine slips back into the acoustic shadows, utilizing the complex topography and thermal layers to evade retaliation. The attacking fleet is left devastatingly crippled, struggling to comprehend how their technological superiority was so easily defeated. This masterclass in asymmetric warfare demonstrates a profound truth. Understanding and adapting to the natural environment is often more powerful than raw technological might. The physics of sound, the chemistry of seawater, and the geology of the ocean floor are harnessed as weapons of defense. But this principle of utilizing the environment to neutralize technological superiority is not confined to the ocean depths. It extends to the land, where asymmetric defense strategies take on new forms. Just as mini submarines use the ocean topography to hide from advanced sonar, defending nations utilize the Earth's geology to protect their most critical assets from aerial bombardment. The advent of precision-guided munitions and satellite surveillance has made surface-level military bases highly vulnerable. In response, nations have turned to deep underground facilities, carving massive fortresses into solid rock. These are not simple bunkers. They are expansive, subterranean military cities. These underground missile cities are a prime example of defensive asymmetric warfare on land. Buried hundreds of meters beneath granite mountains, they are designed to withstand direct hits from even the most powerful conventional bunker-penetrating bomb. The sheer mass of the rock above acts as an impenetrable shield, absorbing the kinetic energy and explosive force of incoming weapons. Just like the ocean thermoclines, the solid Earth provides a physical barrier against advanced technology. Inside these subterranean complexes, entire arsenals of ballistic missiles are stored, maintained, and prepared for launch. The facilities are entirely self-sufficient, equipped with independent power generation, air filtration systems, and vast supplies of food and water. They are designed to operate completely isolated from the outside world for months at a time, ensuring that a nation's retaliatory strike capability remains intact even after a massive, coordinated, preemptive aerial attack. The strategic value of these underground cities lies in their ambiguity and survivability. Satellites can detect the entrances, but they cannot penetrate the rock to determine the layout, the number of missiles inside, or their operational status. This lack of intelligence creates a massive deterrent effect. An attacking force must assume that any strike will be met with a devastating counterattack launched from these invulnerable subterranean fortresses, significantly altering the risk calculus. Furthermore, these complexes often feature multiple hidden launch portals carved into the sides of mountains or disguised as natural terrain features. A missile can be moved from deep storage to a firing position in minutes, launched, and the portal sealed before enemy satellites can even register the event. This shoot and scoot capability, combined with the impenetrable defense of solid rock, mirrors the ambush tactics of the mini submarine perfectly. Stay hidden, strike fast, and disappear. The construction of these facilities requires a profound understanding of geology and structural engineering. Engineers must carefully map fault lines, analyze rock density, and design reinforcement systems capable of seismic shockwaves, shockwaves generated by nearby explosions. It is a battle of physics, pitting the kinetic energy of advanced munitions against the structural integrity of the Earth crust. Once again, geography and physics are weaponized to level the playing field. To counter these deep underground targets, attacking nations invest heavily in developing specialized bunker-busting weapons. These munitions utilize hardened casings and delayed fuses to penetrate deep into the ground before detonating. However, there is a physical limit to how deep a conventional weapon can penetrate solid rock. As the depth of the facilities increases, the effectiveness of these weapons decreases exponentially. The Earth itself becomes the ultimate, unbreakable armor plating. While geology provides physical protection on land and oceanography provides acoustic camouflage at sea, the frontier of asymmetric warfare is moving into the realm of advanced materials science. Specifically, we are witnessing the dawn of quantum stealth technologies and acoustic metamaterials. These innovations aim to manipulate the fundamental properties of light and sound waves, taking the concept of invisibility from the realm of science fiction into the harsh reality of modern conflict. Metamaterials are engineered structures designed to interact with electromagnetic or acoustic waves in ways not found in nature. By precisely arranging microscopic structures, scientists can create materials that bend, absorb, or perfectly reflect specific frequencies of energy. In the context of naval warfare, acoustic metamaterials are being developed to coat the hulls of submarines. These coatings do not simply absorb sonar like traditional rubber tiles, though they actively manipulate the sound waves. Imagine a cloak that smoothly guides water around a stone in a stream, leaving no ripples behind. An acoustic metamaterial cloak works similarly for sound. When an active sonar pulse hits a submarine coated in this material, the sound waves are smoothly guided around the hull and continue on their original path, as if the submarine were not there at all. There is no echo, no reverberation, and no acoustic shadow. The vessel becomes truly, physically invisible to acoustic detection systems. This level of acoustic invisibility would completely revolutionize shallow water warfare. A mini submarine equipped with a metamaterial cloak would no longer need to rely solely on bottoming or navigating complex thermoclines to remain hidden. It could operate freely within the acoustic range of a supercarrier, completely undetected by even the most powerful active sonar arrays. The technological asymmetry would shift massively back in favor of the smaller, cheaper, and stealthier platform. Beyond acoustics, similar principles are being applied to the electromagnetic spectrum to create optical and radar invisibility. Quantum stealth materials, utilizing concepts like negative refractive index, aim to bend light waves around an object, rendering it invisible to the human eye and optical sensors. While still in the experimental stages, the potential military applications are staggering. A sniper, a tank, or a missile launcher could be hidden in plain sight, entirely undetectable. The development of these metamaterials represents the ultimate triumph of physics over brute force. A billion-dollar radar system, or a massive sonar array, relies on the fundamental assumption that waves will bounce off an object and return. If the object can manipulate the physics of the wave itself, preventing that reflection from occurring, the billion-dollar sensor becomes completely worthless. It is a paradigm shift where intellectual capital outweighs financial and industrial capital. This brings us to the core philosophy of asymmetric warfare in the modern era: brain power versus budget. For decades, the dominant military strategy has been to build larger, more complex, and vastly more expensive platforms. The Supercarrier is the pinnacle of this mindset. However, as we have seen in the shallow waters of the littoral zone and deep within the granite mountains, this reliance on sheer scale and technological complexity introduces massive vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Smaller nations, unable to compete financially in a conventional arms race, are forced to innovate. They invest deeply in understanding the specific physics of their local environments. They study the salinity gradients of their coastal waters, map every ridge of their seabed, and analyze the geological strata of their mountains. They weaponize their geography. They realize that a deep understanding of natural phenomena is a far more potent defense than purchasing expensive foreign hardware. This scientific approach to defense strategy is highly effective. By focusing on exploiting the limitations of enemy technology rather than trying to match it, asymmetric forces achieve disproportionate results. A $200 million mini submarine neutralizing a $13 billion supercarrier is the ultimate return on investment. It proves that technological superiority is highly contextual. What works perfectly in the deep ocean fails miserably in the chaotic shallow waters. The vulnerability of large platforms is further exacerbated by the increasing sophistication of anti-access and area denial strategies, commonly known as a 2AD. These strategies aim to prevent an adversary from entering or operating freely within a specific geographic area. The combination of silent mini-submarines, smart sea mines, and shore-based anti-ship missiles creates an overlapping web of threats that makes operating a supercarrier near a hostile coast an incredibly dangerous gamble. Sea mines, often overlooked, are a critical component of this strategy. Modern smart mines are essentially autonomous underwater weapons. They can rest silently on the seabed for months, analyzing acoustic signatures to differentiate between a friendly fishing boat and an enemy warship. When a high-value target is detected, the mine can deploy a guided torpedo or simply detonate directly beneath the hull. Like the mini-submarine, they utilize patience, stealth, and acoustic intelligence. The psychological impact of these unseen threats is immense. A fleet commander, knowing that the shallow waters ahead are infested with silent submarines and intelligent mines, must proceed with extreme caution. The mere possibility of a catastrophic ambush forces the attacking fleet to slow down, alter their plans, and expend massive resources on defensive screening operations. The asymmetric defender achieves a strategic victory simply by creating paralyzing uncertainty in the enemy mind. This psychological friction is a core tenet of asymmetric warfare. It is not just about physically destroying the enemy, it is about destroying their operational tempo and their confidence in their own technology. When a billion-dollar sonar system fails to detect a threat, the trust in that technology evaporates. The crew becomes hyper-vigilant, reacting to every false echo and biological anomaly, exhausting themselves in a futile attempt to pierce the acoustic fog of the littoral zone. To survive in this evolving battle space, major naval powers are being forced to adapt. They are slowly recognizing that the era of uncontested maritime dominance by massive centralized platforms may be coming to an end. The response involves a shift towards distributed lethality. Instead of concentrating all their firepower and sensors on a single, highly vulnerable supercarrier, navies are beginning to disperse their capabilities across a larger number of smaller, more agile surface vessels. Furthermore, there is a massive push towards integrating unmanned underwater vehicles, or UUVs, into fleet operations. These robotic submarines can act as forward scouts, penetrating dangerous littoral zones to map the acoustic environment, hunt for sea mines, and track enemy mini-submarines without risking human lives. By deploying swarms of cheap autonomous sensors, attacking fleets hope to strip away the acoustic camouflage of the shallow waters and reclaim their sensory superiority. However, the integration of autonomous systems introduces a new layer of complexity and vulnerability: the domain of electronic warfare and cybersecurity. As autonomous vessels rely heavily on communication links and artificial intelligence algorithms, they become susceptible to jamming, hacking, and electronic deception. An asymmetric defender does not necessarily need to physically destroy a robotic submarine. They simply need to sever its communication link or confuse its navigation sensors. The battleground is shifting from the physical realm of acoustics and thermodynamics to the invisible domain of the electromagnetic spectrum. Electronic warfare aircraft and shore-based jamming stations can blind the advanced sensors of a supercarrier just as effectively as a thermocline. By disrupting GPS signals, jamming radar frequencies, and intercepting communications, an asymmetric force can effectively decapitate a technologically superior enemy, rendering their advanced weapons useless. This highlights the ultimate lesson of asymmetric warfare. Technology is not a panacea. Every new technological advancement introduces a new set of vulnerabilities. A system that relies heavily on satellite navigation is paralyzed if those satellites are blinded. A weapon that relies on active radar is vulnerable to anti-radiation missiles that home in on those very radar emissions. The constant pursuit of technological supremacy is an endless cycle of creating and exploiting vulnerabilities. In the end, the most resilient defense is not built solely with titanium and silicon, but with intellect and adaptability. The nations that succeed in asymmetric conflicts are those that deeply understand the physical laws governing their battlefields. They are the ones who study the ocean currents, analyze the acoustic reverberation of their seabeds, and map the geology of their mountains. They turn the natural world into their greatest ally and their most formidable, unbreakable weapon.